I grew up poor and black in Akron, Ohio. I went to one of the worst schools in Akron, Ohio. I went to the military, risked my life multiple times. There is no reason that every single black kid on the block can do that same thing.
Oh, no, we are not going there.
Are fed up with their party to hashtag walk away. It's called the Walk Away Movement, and it's gaining serious momentum. Joining us now, Candace Owens of Turning Point USA. Candace, you and I talked about this a little bit on Friday. I cannot believe over the weekend, that's all I saw on Twitter, and people are really grateful. I know also Turning Point's working on a similar campaign, but explain to the audience what's going on here.
Look, I think it's the most natural thing in the entire world. Unfortunately, the left and the Democrats, the party is unrecognizable to many people, especially millennials. They've become violent, they've become extreme, and I think beyond that, they have really radical ideas. Altogether, we're talking about socialism as a platform, which, as we both know, has killed over 100 million people in the last 100 years. How can people say on the left anymore?
But the notion also, though, that people are now brave enough to walk away. I mean, listen, you take a considerable amount of backlash if you're part of any sort of special interest group that is expected to be Democrat. And people are shocked when you're not a Democrat. If you're a black person and you're not a Democrat, people are shocked.
I saw true hate coming from the left, and it was white people calling me Uncle Tom. Pretty much, white people tell me I'm not black enough.
Aunts won't speak to me. Even now, I got aunts that don't talk to me because I want to be white.
The people that call me the nastiest, all kinds of like, oh, house Uncle Tom, like all this stuff.
I've been called a bed wench.
That's how racist the left still is.
If you're Hispanic and you're not a Democrat, people are shocked, and it takes a certain amount of courage to, quote, hashtag walk away.
You know, it definitely does, and I think what we can contribute this to is social media. Social media has provided that courage to people because you're looking around and you're seeing so many like-minded individuals pop up. Me, as a black person who says, look, I have conservative values. The many people that trailblazed before me, like Larry Elder, Condoleezza Rice, and Dr. Ben Carson, they didn't have social media in the way that we have it today, which allows us to springboard off of their ideas and make it okay to come out. The walk away hashtag was started by a gay hairdresser in New York City.
That is Brandon Straka, who has created quite a stir in recent days over his high-profile decision to leave the left behind because of their overzealous rhetoric and violent protest. Earlier, I sat down with Brandon to talk about his decision and some of the reaction to it. Take a look. Brandon Straka, thanks so much for joining us tonight. You are a very interesting man, and let me just say that you have been a lifelong liberal.
Yes.
And then you drifted.
I did.
What changed?
Well, I just became more aware as time went on that, you know, the identity politics and the politically correct culture was getting very out of control. But in terms of me actually switching parties, it was after the election of Donald Trump because I voted for Hillary, and I was on Facebook crying, wondering what had gone wrong, what happened to the good people of Middle America. And but a friend of mine reached out to me and showed me a YouTube clip, which was basically compilation footage showing all these different ways in which the media had taken moments out of context in Donald Trump's campaign and spun it and created a narrative that he was a racist, a bigot, a homophobe. And in fact, I even saw another video showing black people who had gone to a Trump rally to support him. And when CNN showed up, they intentionally cut them out of the shot, so it appeared that there were only white people there. So it began to paint a picture for me that the media had been incredibly dishonest about their narrative of who Trump was and who his supporters were.
So when Trump talks about fake news, you find that to be accurate?
Well, I didn't used to, but now it's yes, I know it's accurate.
All right, so you were a Democrat. Now you have a new movement called hashtag walk away.
Yes.
That you're wearing. Good marketing.
Thank you.
And what are you walking away from?
Well, I'm walking away from the Democrat Party, and I'm also walking away from the divisive, hateful, and now I think we're on the brink of almost violent rhetoric that's coming from the left.
Okay.
The complete lack of civility. I mean, the complete lack of being able to sit down and even have a civil discourse about our different political beliefs. You know, I mean, at this point, it's like if you don't agree with what the left says, it's because you're a Nazi and you're a bigot. And they have allowed themselves to become so entitled at this point in their feelings that it's like, if you disagree with them, they're almost at the point now where they can not serve you in a restaurant, or they can commit a violent act against you.
We're not almost at the point, we're at the point
You are
where
correct.
People who are working in the government, who have, are spending 18 hours a day, most of the ones that I know working, are being thrown out of places and not served.
Yes.
And I understand that yesterday something unusual happened to you.
It did. I was in a camera store in New York City. I was just trying to buy some technical equipment. And when I went to make my purchase, the salesperson said to me, are you planning to use this equipment for alt-right purposes? And I sort of laughed and I said, alt-right? And he said, well, aren't you with the Walkaway campaign? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't sell to you. I don't support that, and I can't sell to you.
What did you do?
Started shaking.
Really?
I did. I mean, that was the first. I understand that this kind of thing is going to happen to me more going forward, but this was the first time it happened, and it took my breath away. Yeah, I was, and to be honest with you, I was scared. I mean, these people have my information in their computer. Now I don't know what's going to happen next.
But you see, now you're experiencing what Republicans, conservatives have been experiencing across the country.
Correct.
Whether you're walking down a street in Manhattan, if you're, the more visible you become, the more people are going to attack you.
Yes.
I had someone on my show last week, and I said, give me one example where people on the right have done this to people on the left. Give me just one example, because they say, oh, it's both sides. Are you seeing now that that's not the case?
Yes, I am seeing that that's not the case. And the other thing that I'm seeing is just how forgiving people on the right are when these things happen. I mean, it's two completely different worlds, because people on the left can be so vicious and they can attack so much, but people on the right, even if they disagree with you, they can do it very civilly.
All right, but you're a very interesting individual. I mean, you're gay, you're a hairstylist, you're an aspiring actor,
right.
You live in Manhattan, you've been a Democrat, and now you are in a position to see some of the lies that have been perpetuated by the left, and you were leaving. But what is your mission ultimately?
Well, I want people to, first of all, I'm not even telling people where to go or what to do. What I'm asking is that they start doing their own research. Stop believing everything that they hear just because CNN says it, or MSNBC, or the New York Times. Do your own research, do your own facts, and you'll be surprised what you find out. But ultimately, particularly for minorities in America, racial minorities, LGBT people, I want them to become aware that the Democrat Party doesn't actually support them. They're actually using them, and they're actually manipulating their fears and concerns to get them to vote the way they want them to vote and behave the way they want them to behave.
So we're seeing so many people pop up, and as I said, this is just the beginning. I really do believe we are seeing the end of the Democratic Party as we know it.
How toxic it is. Their policies that hurt the people they are designed to help. The only thing that they have is identity. These people are con artists.
I've got another one for you. On that same note, there's a poll out showing that millennials supported Democrats for Congress, slipping by 9 percentage points in the past couple of years. I mean, listen, it seems like there's a massive shift to the GOP, but more particularly away from Democrats, and it's centered amongst millennials. What do you make of that?
Well, just look at some of the facts here. Look at the priorities on the left. They've been highly focused on illegal immigrants, the 2,000 illegal immigrants that were separated from their families. And yet we see that there are millions of kids that are in foster care and millions of kids that have been separated by their parents that have been in prison. So it's about seeing really where their priorities lie. They're starting to wake up and understand that their interests have not been for us in a long time, and yet they've been insisting on using our identities, whether we're black, our sexual orientations, whether we're gay, lesbian, to sort of strap us down into the stale existence of the Democratic Party platform. And we're seeing a movement away from that, a movement towards ultimately individualism.
Become a fairly recent conservative.
That is true.
How did you reach that point?
Well, I like to say now that the reason I'm conservative is because I used to be a liberal, and I learned a lot. Obviously, growing up in a black household, there's a lot of emphasis placed on black people today being liberals, being Democrats. It's pretty much programmed into us via the public school system that that is the only option for us, because Republicans, of course, are racist and they want to harm the black community. And I had a different experience in life, realizing that everything in my life seemed to be going wrong. I was blaming the world for everything that was going wrong. There was no personal responsibility, because in a lot of these liberal movements, you're essentially taught that there's always someone else that you can blame. And you're pointing the finger at everybody else. You're not looking internally to fix things, and you'll find that things will continue to go wrong. So during the 2016 election cycle, I was watching our wonderful president take a run for the White House, and the conversation was very strange. The rhetoric that the media was using was extremely aggressive. They were trying to convince me that he was a racist, that he was a sexist, that he was a misogynist, at one point that he was incestuous, right? They started that horrible story about Ivanka Trump, and at one point that he was a rapist. And I said, this is very strange. I grew up in a household listening to hip hop music. Trump was glorified in a lot of those music and a lot of those songs. And all of a sudden they wanted me to believe that he was a racist. So I had to ask myself in that moment, is it plausible that racism is being used as a theme to turn black people into single issue voters? And the answer to that question is, of course, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in this particular poll, white men 18 to 34, 2016, 48% for Democrats in Congress. That number all the way down to 37%. And, you know, identity politics and selling of guilt, it seems to be backfiring. That the notion that everyone should be guilty or angry or have some sort of animosity against someone who's not like them, whether it's income related or race related or sexual orientated related. I'm just surprised, shocked, to be quite frank with you, at how much devastation is happening to the Democrats on this.
I'm not shocked whatsoever. I saw this. It's why I created my YouTube page initially. I saw this movement happening because look at what they're selling. Look at what the adjectives that you just used. Guilty, right? The idea of being oppressed, of guilty, of angry, of being a victim. And what we're offering is freedom, you know, happiness, individualism, a way to progress forward. Which is going to win in the end? Positivity or negativity? That's what we are seeing happening right now in all communities.
Right.
It's an American movement towards freedom.
Candace Owens, thanks a lot. Great seeing you.
Thank you for having me.